The setting reactional side, maybe I've been talking too much on the rising, but on the setting reactional side, there's the ability to respond to the ideas of others and make sense of where one is you're bouncing off the ideas of others. You might do that from your teachers when you're young, but it's really people handling, I can use that a piece of information. Okay, that's good. I know this app. I know this crack. I know how to deal with this program. I can get through this. It's like learning things that you can do. But on the setting side, it's more interreacting. Well, they're doing that. You want to show me how to do this, or what do you think about this? And there's more an exchange of information back and forth. So it's the alertness is on the exchange, partnership, business, trust, philosophy. We're thinking the same, we're aligned the same. It's easy to be at peace with your mind or active. But if everybody's believing in a certain way and you're having doubts, Mercury setting, you're taking in the worry, you're picking up worries where I don't fit in, I don't really think in from that. You can still have the setting Mercury, but you're not getting the positive effects from the group. So anytime you're in a group and you try and pull away from the group, say it's a religious group, and you try and pull away, the group's going to make you look bad. If you're in a football team and you decide to quit, everybody's going to look you put bad. You're not going to get the good feedback for participation. You're going to start saying, you're pulling away, what's wrong with you? You're not participating anymore. You know, they're pulling into their own world. I guess the same process would happen if you're in a relationship and you're sharing and going on. You build up your world, you have your friends, you have your status, you have your position, you're in a relationship, and then the relationship ends. Whoa, your Mercury's down. Who am I? Your Mercury may be above, your Mercury may be below, but suddenly the marriage ends. Nobody, all your friends are going, because no one wants to deal with the problem of broken marriage. They want to maintain their own marriage, their own functional reality. So you're on your own in your own subjective world. How do I feel? How do I rebuild? And either you're going deep into figuring things out more, or you're trying to figure things out so you can get back and function more. You find another person or relate to other person, or are you never going back there again? So all I'm doing, I'm not trying to find, just like picking examples of the houses have all these examples in it. You know, like the relationship, the not relationship, being together, not being together. These are just in the objective, subjective world where we go through these phases and cycles. But having your Mercury one way or another is how you make sense out of it. So being part of a team, like group therapy or teamwork, can pull someone out of a broken relationship and make them feel okay. But for some people, it will never work. They have to go into their own depth and brood on it until they come out of it themselves. It's not set in stone, but you're seeing predisposition. So if you got a kid that's autistic or someone's, I mean, we don't worry about someone's thinking until we start thinking, oh, that thinking's off, or they're not thinking right, or something like that. Then how do you reach them? By then, they're already been doing that a long time. And how do you start providing information that starts feeding them so that they can project their own ideas and be confident about it? How do you get them better content? How do you get them more social positions so they can work with it better? So there's different ways to work with the mind and to reach people. Wow, it would be, I mean, this is anyone teaching or working with groups or trying to inspire people or this is really useful information to see. You'll see how the class and how people fill out and how people are processing these different ways. If you never taught and you've just worked in an office or something, you might see it in a different way, but you wouldn't see, you'd see who's fast, who's slow, who's doing things, who's not, who's distracted, who's not. You wouldn't necessarily see why, but a teacher would have to see these things. And each one can have its own excellence. You're not going to find the genius computer programmer in the highly objective social functional world. You're going to find them in the subject world trying to figure things out themselves, knowing how to make it and learning the languages to perceive things and then making it useful to others. So even though we haven't got to the specific, this house is a house of money, this house is a house for relationships, it's the last place I go to. I sort of have those things in my mind. Oh, that's about relationships, that's about that. But I'm not going to say, oh, your planet's in that house, so it's just about marriage, or it's just about, no, I don't do that. I work these quadrants or these sections to see how it's working. So I see the behavioral side of it. And then I look to see how the houses align with these things. So when it comes to the specific areas of the houses, they're tied in, and they explain the intuitive thinking sensation. They explain the quadrants even, but they did it 3 divisions of a quadrant. So you start explaining those, and you get more lucid about it, and you can begin to see how these other categories come in and how the Mercury can be affected by that. But just doing the houses without seeing this rising, setting, and above and below is very myopic. It's very narrow-minded. So just like any words are the lowest form of astrology. You got your planet here, so it means you'll never be married, or you got Saturn in the 70s, you'll never be married. It's not true. It doesn't work like that. It puts a seriousness around the marriage house, but really it's a seriousness about responding to anyone, a defensiveness around responding to anyone. Like, it goes to much more inclusive things. It doesn't have to fit within the context of just marriage. So Mercury's context can have judgments. I have Mercury in Scorpio, and I have a Mercury in 30. I'll make judgments, and I live in them for 20 years. That person was an asshole. Excuse me, that person was a bad person. That person was this, that person was that. But really, I'm making the judgment. Then I run across some Gemini that's going through this. They went to exactly the same thing. They make a judgment. They get over it in about 10 minutes. I'm sitting there thinking, are they for real? Did they really just do that in 10 minutes? I've been festering on this for 20 years. It took me 20 years to begin to see that I might have something to do with why my marriage is split up, rather than just them doing it to me. That's my subjective Mercury. It's not so functional. But it's funny when you're detached and looking at it, is not when you're going through it. So it's better to keep Mercury as a puzzle, not as I'm just defining, oh, that means just this. No, it's a puzzle. It's just like you have a kid, how they're thinking, how they're processing. It's a puzzle. And when you see how they process different than you, or similar to you, that's really interesting. That, like, you really get it, or hopefully you get it. Of course, you'd have to have your mind evolve to a certain level to be able to be working with astrology, to be looking at these things in the first place, which most people aren't. It's just happening. Most people wouldn't realize that you can actually see these levels of insight. Okay. Now we're just putting them together. We're doing the intuition, thinking, sensation, feeling quadrants. And as the Mercury comes along, so you have the subjective side. Half of it is how I'm putting my ideas out. Half is how I'm taking them in. So how am I expressing myself going out? How am I responding? And if someone says something, do I take it real? Do I make it real? Do I really hear them? Does it make a difference to me? If I know that your wife or husband has been running around on you, and I'm your friend, I can be sensitive to it. I can be protecting of it. I can say exactly the wrong thing about it, or I can say the right thing about it. Do I tell you? Do I not tell you? On one level, on a social objective level, wow, do I tell them or not? Do I make it personal or not? Well, that's just what's happening. Usually you just back away. But sometimes if someone's doing something wrong, you feel you have to say something. So then you say something, you pull into yourself, or you pull into yourself and you don't say something, but it's going to affect the relationship. It's going to affect the communication. What's said, what's not said. Everything does. We're using our mind to learn astrology. We're using our mind to learn languages. Then we're thinking about the languages of what I could say. Then we're developing a consciousness of expanding, exploring the limits of that consciousness of that language to express ourselves more and more, increase our literacy, and express ourselves. Some people aren't. Some people are. Some people are doing well. Some people are doing less. But there's so many other things that can be learned that are just as valid to that person as it doesn't have to be astrology. Wow. I mean, astrology to me is a real privilege, but I realize if you take all the educated people in the world, it's kind of like this big, I don't know if I can do it, big curve that goes out like this. But if you take the educated people, it's just a small group of people. It's a small group along that. So of all the people that learn a language, you don't have to learn language to have a good Mercury. You can be without a language and just expressing and interacting. But of all the people learn a language, and then out of all the languages learned, how many people take that language and develop it far enough to learn the poetry, learn the mysticism, learn the philosophy, and actually to get to astrology, to study it, to get to learn it? Wow. a lot of people are curious and interested, but not many people really study it because and a lot of that information isn't there as much as there is other things about science and other factors. Most education is geared to business and to what career you're going to have. Okay, that's one of my Mercury judgments. Okay, there we go. But the subjective Mercury is going to be, if it's rising subjective, you're going to project your personal judgments. My Mercury is down here. I project my personal judgment, my intuitions. Oh, this is so cool. Look at this, you know. Aries doing that. Oh, Scorpio's doing, oh, this is so interesting. I want to project. I want to talk about it. Or how could that sign do that to me? Or like I can make judgments that aren't right. I'm working with astrology. I have to work to keep my relationship to each sign positive, or positive and negative, so it's neutral, not overly judgmental. So after 3 marriages, there's 3 signs I've really done the work on to not be negative. But someone else might have gone through it and not made that decision to not be negative. But it's in my face all the time. But I get ideas, I get intuitions, I see where things are coming from, and I'm expressing myself. So as a consultant, as a teacher, my mind is in touch with my content, where I'm coming from. Wow, and I can relate it, and I got to talk it out and express it. Unfortunately, where I'm coming from, my own life has been very unique and didn't fit in. It's not the normal life of where most people are coming from out there. But I don't see it like that. I think everybody's coming from this, and this is useful to anybody, and I'm putting the energy out. This is how I see it. I'm intuitively any books that encourage my intuition or improve my insight and my ability to express myself. Wow, it's like getting a hug and an inspiration. I get charged up. You know, it's like when the Star Wars movie comes out, it's hard not to talk about the Force. You know, or the light side or the dark side of the Force. But intuitions can be positive or negative. And there's a whole spectrum of energy, and that energy, the mind is going to be working on projecting these personal intuitions, instincts, my own ideas. So even the 3rd house is like the common sense house of brothers, sisters, and the attitudes and the prejudices of brothers and sisters and the biases of the family and what makes sense. All of this is down in the 3rd house. So I had to come to a post-war, a lot of anger and violence in my home. It was a spin-off from a war as I look at it from a detached level. But other people have other things. They don't always have negative things coming from there. But we're affected by our immediate environment, brothers and sisters and relatives. And that's where we get our common sense out of. Who's linked to mom, where I'm coming, what I'm doing, how I get up, what I'm doing, who's doing what, and how do you express yourself. That's your 3rd house. It's a personal expression. It's not about how you're fitting in. It's how you can joke with your brother or not, or talk to your mom or any of the. It's just being able to express, I got to have this, where's the sugar, what's going on? Simple things. And then it goes into the 2nd house of resources, of having money, having things, having talents. And you begin thinking about, not just about money, but if I had this, if I want to get this, how am I going to get the money for it? So when I was 12, I asked my dad if I could have a bike. This is back in the 50s. He says, there's no way you're going to get a bike till you're 16. He says to me, so I said to him, here's the Mercury. What if I buy it myself? He looks at me and says, well, if you buy it yourself, then it's yours. I can't say anything about it. So he was a Gemini. But so then within 2 months, I got a couple of newspaper routes. I had a couple other things I did, and I raised enough money, $25. That was a lot back then, back in the 50s. And I bought my own bike. Wow. It wasn't because I had any support from outwardly. It's just I had the intuition. I said, well, okay, if I get it myself, and then I pumped and followed the ideas. I went and got things, and I found out ways to make money. I just saved till I got it. It was thrown back on me, and I followed through on that. Not so much as it was sort of social function because I had to go get it, but really it was about me using my ideas to see how to get it, to put things out. So Mercury, 3rd house is the common sense. 2nd house is about resources and how do you use what you have. And the 1st house is how do you put the package together to look the way you want to look, to dress the way you want to dress, or whatever. Well, that whole quadrant, most of my planets are in, and I probably have never dressed to fit in, you know, to do what was that. It's like